Hi everyone, my name is Jaden, and if you clicked on this video, you're probably curious as to what happened. So yes, you read the thumbnail correctly. I landed my first animation job, and within the same fell swoop, it seems, I lost the job as quickly as I got it. So, I'm a little scatterbrained. This video isn't going to be like my usual videos. It's more of like a story time, something personal that happened to me, so it's not going to be as like educational and tutorial style like some of my videos usually are. If you notice, I'm trying something different. I'm recording at night. Nice cozy vibes here in the study in my little office space. It is currently 4 a.m. at the time of recording this because I can't sleep. What is sleep? I don't know. But this is also the most perfectly tranquil and quiet and peaceful it has been. So perfect time for recording a video, honestly. But anyway, before I dive into the story of exactly what happened and why it happened, I just wanted to get a couple of disclaimers out of the way. In no way am I trying to say anything negative about the studio I worked with, even though our working relationship was cut short very abruptly. We still, ended things on pretty positive terms. They were very amicable about it, and there's really no hard feelings at all. The second thing I wanted to bring up is I feel like up until this point, my audience has maybe been under the impression that I was already working in the animation industry, but I never really claimed to work at a studio. I'm just documenting my own journey as a creative person, trying to navigate and pursue this path and just kind of sharing what I've learned along the way. So this was my very first animation job ever. So now that we got that out of the way, some of the things that I want to discuss within my story is how I got the job, what the interview process was like, what the job itself was actually like and what it entailed, and reasons why I was let go. By the end of this video, I also kind of wanted to have a bit of an open discussion of the current state of the animation industry. As we all know, it's been pretty rough, so we're going to talk a little bit about that at the very end. Honestly, after this last experience, it may very well impact the type of content that I'm going to be making moving forward, so stick around for me to discuss that a little bit further too. So let's talk about it. Let's dive right in. At the time of recording this video, it's been about 2 months since I was laid off, and I just want to start things off by saying I always knew going into this career path it was a very unstable and project-based industry, and I know that people have a tendency to hop around from studio to studio, but I mean, to be completely honest, I never in a million years thought that baby's first layoff would be happening so early in my career. So I was definitely blindsided by that. I will be talking about that a little bit as well, kind of like the life after layoff scenario. So anyone who is looking to pursue animation, I'm not trying to deter or scare anybody, but just, there's unfortunately the not so fun side of it, and the nature of this industry and these types of jobs come with the territory, and unfortunately part of that is layoffs. So yeah, we're gonna dive deeper into that in a second. I'm gonna start off by talking about how I got the job. That's probably the shortest part of the whole spiel. I was referred by somebody. You probably heard a lot of times people saying like it's who you know and network and talk to people. And, sure enough, the way that I got my first job in animation was someone who knew me personally through some of the volunteer work that I did at Latinx Animation. And they were moving up into another role, and that role was going to become available. So I was recommended for the position. Of course, I still had to apply and I still had to interview for it like anyone else. But, it did help having someone on the inside give like that extra nudge and put in a good word for me. Now, the interview process, funnily enough, was like the most casual interview process I've ever experienced. So much so that I wasn't even fully aware that the interview was an interview until like halfway into it happening. It's silly, but in my head, I thought because this person put in a good word for me and was recommending me to the producer and line producer, I thought it was going to be a more of like a casual like conversation, meet and greet situation, which I guess technically that's what an interview is. You're having a conversation to get to know the employer and the company and all of that. But I thought like they just, I don't know, wanted to see if I passed the vibe check or something before actually interviewing me. But no, that was the interview, was the actual interview. But again, it was super laid back. They asked me a couple of questions. Honestly, I can't even remember off the top of my head what it was. Because I remember it feeling more like a conversation rather than me being asked a bunch of stuff. It was like they told me more about the studio and the type of projects that they work on. They told me a little bit about the project that I was going to be on, should they take me on to their team. And I came prepared with my own questions. I always think it's really important to come prepared to your interviews. And even though I wasn't sure how to treat this, I wasn't 100% sure it was the legitimate interview, I still had some questions in the back of my mind that I knew I wanted to ask, which I thought was really helpful. So for me personally, it's really important to be part of a studio that is going to nurture my growth professionally. I'm always looking to learn a new skill, get better at something, hone either a current craft that I already have or take on something completely new. And I don't know, I don't like things to be stale. I don't like feeling like every day is the same. I like a little bit of change. I like to be challenged. It just, I don't know, it keeps my brain going, So the questions I asked were something along the lines of, who would I be working most closely with? What does your onboarding process look like? What are your expectations for how long you expect it to take me to acclimate to the role? Things of that nature. Because even though I felt pretty confident in my abilities and my skill set, that I had transferable skills from my previous experiences to do the job, it still was going to be something brand new to me. I've gone to workshops and I've gone to networking events and I've taken courses on production and writing and all these different things. But it's one thing to read about something or have other people tell you about it than it is to actually do the thing. So again, even though I felt like I was perfectly capable of doing the thing, I still wanted to be very transparent in, proper expectations for how long it should take me to get acclimated, and also, how much of a learning curve I was going to be given to kind of get the hang of everything. Especially because the person who was referring me, who was leaving, I was only going to be working with them for like a week before they transitioned out of the role. So we were going to be together for a very short period of time. And, I just wanted to be sure that I would still need some time to get the hang of things. They were very understanding about it. They knew that this was going to be my first ever job working in an animation studio, but I was still familiar with the terminology and the process and all that, but they were still very understanding of the fact that I was inexperienced, so to speak. They were very open to taking me on. They seemed to like me because I got the job in the end, so it went really well. Once I went through the interview process, they asked me for some references, which is something really important I wanted to point out as well. And the references that I ended up giving them were my mentor, Curtis, from when I did the Women in Animation mentorship circle, showrunner mentorship circle. I had another mentor from Latinx in Gaming, my good friend Nikki, who is a recruiter at EA Games, and I also had another mentor and friend of mine, Anu, who is a junior executive at Atomic. Again, it's who you know. That's why it's really important to always talk to people, build those relationships so that, you have someone in your corner to vouch for you when you really need it. I gave them my references about, let's say, like a week went by, and then they officially reached out via email offering me the position. The role that I applied and interviewed for was a production assistant role, full-time PA. In the email offer, it stated the weekly rate that they were offering, benefits package, all of that. And I just had to say yes or no. And, I was so ecstatic to take on the opportunity. I just said yes immediately and jumped on it. No hesitation, no questions asked. That's pretty much how it all, well, not all of it, but that's how I got the job, at least. They had told me beforehand that I had the option of either being remote in office or hybrid, which was great. I think is a luxury nowadays. And me just wanting to experience working in the comfort of my own home chose to be remote. So I set up everything on my home computer, my personal computer, but I created a separate profile on my Mac that was strictly for work and all my work related stuff, because when you work remotely, part of what you have to do, especially since you're under NDA, project I was on at the time of recording this video hasn't been released yet, but it has been publicly announced. You're dealing with like servers that they have to give you remote access to be able to see like all the different art files and storyboards and everything pertaining to the project. So I had to, set that all up with the IT people from home. So that's part of the process. If you're ever working remotely, that's kind of how it works. It's up to the company to either issue you like a work computer or you use your personal computer. They did give me the option to have a work computer, but the problem that I found with it is that it was a desktop, like a big desktop monitor, and the way that I have my desk set up, I just would not have space for a monitor that big. So I opted to have my work computer set up in my office, physically, like on site in the building. So if I ever felt like coming in person, which I did like once during my time there, I would have my work computer stationed in a cubicle like in the studio, and then at home I would just use my own computer. So I kind of had both. So that's how that worked. Aside from all the technical IT stuff, my day-to-day involved a lot of heavy calendar management above all else. Like, I had to handle email correspondence between the external vendors and the studio. A project I was working on was a Disney property, so sometimes it would be with Disney executives, other times it would be with the external animation studio that was doing all the animation for us, talking to their leads and coordinating meetings with them. Also the composers for the music. There was a bunch of different outside studios that we were working with. There was like Disney, there was the animation studio, there was the audio people, and within audio there was like one studio that would handle sound effects and another studio that would do the composing of the music. And the show that I was working on was a musical, like it had original songs in it, so it's not just like the original soundtrack of like all the background music, but also like songs that the characters would sing. And then there was another studio that would handle all of the recording of the voice actors that would come on to do their lines. So it was a lot of moving parts. Production is the backbone of every project, and as a PA, my main responsibility was being that point of contact between all of these different studios and us, and making sure that if we always had to have meetings with all these different studios, I would have to make sure that the meetings corresponded with everyone's availability. I had to be conscious of different time zones on top of their availability and just manage all of that. While it doesn't sound that complicated the way I explain it, managing calendars is a lot more stressful and daunting than I make it seem to be. So, I have had experience managing calendars and creating like meeting links and doing like Zoom and like all that virtual stuff before, just not on this large of a scale. In my past work experiences, the times I've had to do this has been with much smaller, more intimate teams of like maximum like 5 or 6 people. I would look at the calendar, and even though meetings were already scheduled for the day, literally on a daily basis, things would constantly have to get pushed and moved around. So even if the schedule was already made for the day, it was never set in stone. Like things would always get moved around. So on top of trying to, stay organized in all of that, you also have to be flexible and know, how to plug in the pieces of like, oh, this meeting needs to be moved to this other date and time, but wait, there's 7 different people in this meeting, and the availability for this time slot works for like 5 people, but not for these 2. Now I have to find another place to squeeze this in. So it was a lot of that. Aside from the calendar stuff, every project has a totally different pipeline that is tailored to that project. This show was a 3D animated CG series, a preschool series. So given that age rating and that medium, usually with preschool shows, they tend to give back notes, I feel like, more frequently than maybe more mature audience shows, because with preschool, because the audience is so young, there's just so many things in S&P, which stands for standards and practices, that we have to run by Disney to make sure that they're okay with it, because it's tailored to a very young audience. So we have to be careful that certain things that are being portrayed aren't like too impressionable for things that like a young kid might copy what they see on TV, little things like that. So I get back notes a lot, very, very, very often for the tiniest things. It's something as minuscule as like if a character has like an angry expression, like their eyebrows are just a little too furrowed, we'll get a note back on that and be like, the character can't be this pissed off, even though it's like not that big of a deal. It's just little things like that. I learned very quickly how that works. As I was saying, the pipeline is different for every project. And in this studio, the way that they would take notes for different types of meetings varied depending on what meeting it was. So as an example, for a lot of design meetings or notes or feedback on the design of the characters, the sets, props, anything that had to do with design, there was this online platform called Sync Sketch that they would use, and it would basically allow the artists to like upload the files. They would have to put in the correct folder within the server where everyone who has access to it can see it, so that during a meeting they could all hop into that folder during the meeting, and so we'd all be looking at the same thing. And within the program itself, it gives you the ability to type in notes, especially if, like, for example, in a storyboard or an animatic review, if there's a video involved, and this is not just for storyboards and all that, but also when we're getting back bits of animation, you can scrub through the video footage and look for the exact timestamp of where to write your note. So, for example, let's say there's a character that looks like off model or something in like sequence 5, frame 10, as an example. Like, it can be as specific as that. You look for the exact time code on there of where the note needs to be given. You can type it and it'll be attached to that time code, which is pretty cool. There's different softwares that different studios use. ShotGrid is the most commonly known one. As a PA, I did not touch ShotGrid, only the coordinators did. But again, that's going to vary from studio to studio. But we used SyncSketch a lot for those notes. So sometimes it would be taken in there. Other times it would be literally an Excel sheet and it would have different columns where it's a similar thing. Like instead of having a software where you can pinpoint the exact time code and just type the note in a spreadsheet, I would just have to type the time code out manually. So I would have one column where I type out the time code, and the next column I would write what the note is, and then another column I would put what department this note pertains to. So it's like, is this a revision for the board artist that they have to maybe redraw a couple extra frames? Or is this a production fix where maybe there's some like temporary scratch dialogue that needs to be provided so that the board artist can kind of get the timing right for the animatic, little things like that. And then also in another column in some meetings, there would be an extra column for the level of priority. Like, is this a top priority to Disney? Or is this something that can wait a little bit until we get back some notes from some other department? So little things like that. And everything happens in what we call like the waterfall sequence. So you'll have multiple episodes in production at the same time simultaneously. And because the show is brand new, and again, at the time of recording this video, it has not premiered yet, we were getting into the later episodes of the first season by the time I came on board. But like the very first episode wasn't even finished yet. And this show has already been in production for, I want to say like 2 years before I was hired onto the team. So by the time I came on board, we had our very first lighting test for the first episode. And that was really cool because at that stage in the production, they hadn't gotten that far yet. Like, we were finally getting far along enough in the animation and everything of an episode to see it fully rendered and with lighting, which is really exciting to see. So the one and only time that I went to the studio in person, it was to do a review for the lighting of an episode. And that was really, really cool because it looks so beautiful. It was so pretty. Like the way it was rendered and the lighting and everything was just chef's kiss. And it all takes place like underwater. So the effects were just so pretty. So it was really exciting to see that. But yeah, there was just a lot involved with all the different departments, coordinating lots of calendars, getting familiar with the software, getting familiar with the workflow and the way that they do things, and just being really good at multitasking. It was kind of expected of me that while I'm in a meeting taking notes, I would also have to be keeping an eye on an email and on my Slack in case anything important that needed to be taken care of in a timely manner popped up. So if there was something that was like really high priority, even though I'm in a meeting taking notes, if it's important and dire enough, I would have to either try to excuse myself or, message one of the production folks, maybe a coordinator, be like, oh, could you take over for me for a few minutes while I go take care of this? And I would just kind of like go on silent for a little bit on the Zoom call, attend to the calendar or the email or whatever is needed, and then kind of hop back in and resume what I was doing. So that was something that was like, for me, just like getting comfortable multitasking in that way and just, adapting to a fast-paced environment that is unfamiliar to me. One of the things that I found the most daunting about coming onto this role is, again, I had been very transparent and set certain expectations and asked what the expectations were of me for getting used to the role and what the learning curve was going to be. And I was assured that, they were very understanding of the fact that it was baby's first animation job and I was getting a hang of everything. But, after about 3 weeks went by, I was struggling with certain things and making a lot of mistakes, and I felt really bad and self-conscious about it. And even though I was, in the moment, if I made a mistake, I would own up to it and be like, oh, okay, like now I know for next time, like moving forward, I'll make sure not to do that again, or like, I would try. But it would be like certain things that the type of mistakes that I was making would just be certain things that I wouldn't have known to ask about because they were just things I wasn't aware of. Like, one example of that was whenever I would send out like calendar invites to these external people from other places, I knew these are a lot of people in our contacts, and I don't know every single person from each department, and I made the mistake a couple of times of accidentally either leaving out a person or two from an email chain because I wasn't aware that they were part of that group, or the opposite, where I would include the wrong people. So I would CC people in the email that didn't need to be on that chain, things like that. Like I didn't have an exact list of contacts of like who to email when for what meeting sort of thing. So that was something I struggled with quite a bit, and just trying to, learn people's names and figure out who was who, especially when I was mostly working remote, and these were folks in other studios that I was probably never going to see face to face anyway. I was struggling with it a lot, and I was really, really insecure about it. Whenever I felt that way or I got self-conscious, I was reassured like, oh, we understand you're new. We know that you're still getting used to this. Like, we get it. And I would kind of be given that reassurance. But unfortunately, there was just one week in particular where I felt like I was messing up real bad. And there was one day in particular that I wasn't feeling so great about myself. I was really kind of down on myself, and I don't know, I just had like this bad feeling in the pit of my stomach. There was like a situation, there was like an email chain where I was trying to contact the right people to reschedule a meeting, and that was something that was an opportunity for me. It's something that I, was struggling with. So I had asked someone like, who are the people that I need to contact to change this meeting, because I don't want to send the email to the wrong person. And even though I asked and I tried to make sure that it was the right people, I still messed up somehow and I got it wrong. Like, I don't know. I wasn't feeling very good about that. And after that email went out, I got notification from the line producer for a meeting with them the next day, and I was like, oh no, I don't feel good about this. I was already feeling pretty bad about me trying to just like get the hang of everything and keep up with the demands of the project. I was pretty scared. Although I'll be honest, like I thought at most it would just be like a really stern talking to. I was not expecting the conversation to be the conversation that it was. The next day came around. The meeting kept getting pushed back, which only made my anxiety just like skyrocket. It was so bad. Like, it was supposed to be in the morning, and then I got pushed to after lunch, and then I got pushed into like later in the evening to like 4 p.m. It just kept getting pushed back, and like the anticipation was just like killing me. But when it finally happened, they told me, we think you're great. We think you came in with the right attitude, and you're willing to learn, and you were asking a ton of questions, and you were doing everything you could to like, get used to the role. But unfortunately, like, we don't have as much time to give you as we thought we did. We would have hoped that you would have like gotten the hang of the role a little faster by now, and it's just not going to be a good fit. But it's not to say that we're not open to working with you again in the future. So the conversation pretty much went like that. It's still, I still get really upset about it. It still stings, even though it's been a few months since it happened. It hit me pretty hard. Again, it's like no hard feelings between us, and it's fine. And I just said I understood and thanked them for giving me a chance and all that. It's still It still really sucks. I've been trying to break into the animation industry for the last 7 years. I was devastated. I was crushed. I definitely cried a lot. Thankfully, my partner was home when it happened, and I had a shoulder to cry on. But I was a hot mess. Like, I did not feel great after that, and I don't know how else to describe it other than like it just sucks. It sucks that I had been trying for that long. I felt like I finally accomplished something. I finally reached that goal that I had been pursuing for so long, just to have it gone so quickly, and like right before the holiday season, just to add insult to injury. So yeah, and of course, like, I panicked, I freaked out, because I was like, oh my gosh, I had a stable like retail job with healthcare and stuff, and now I'm unemployed, and what do I do? And I was just like panicking, and thankfully I have friends who do work in the industry that know what that's like, and was able to kind of guide me through the unemployment process and how to apply for that and how that works. That was interesting to navigate, and it's kind of where I'm at right now. I hate to say that this is the way that my year is ending. It kind of feels like it's ending on a bit of a crappy note in that regard. But on the bright side, my YouTube channel is slowly growing. I'm just about to hit my first 1,000 subscribers, so that's really exciting. And I'm looking forward to having a little bit more free time to create more videos in the near future while I continue my job hunt and search for my next opportunity. The one part about all of this that I find to be really bittersweet is it was almost like a blessing in disguise, because while I'm on unemployment and trying to seek work, I have this like downtime, catch my breath and just relax for a little bit. I spent the first couple of weeks kind of moping a little bit because I was really hurt. My confidence was just shot, and my confidence is still a little bit fragile right now, even. But I've just been trying to pick myself back up and just keep on going. I know I'm not the only person going through this right now. There are thousands and thousands of people getting laid off every day, and constantly seeing that on my LinkedIn feed is really hard. With that, I kind of wanted to bring up the topic of the current state of the industry right now. It's rough. I don't need to tell you that. Hopefully you're already aware of that. It's been rough for a couple of years now, and it just seems to keep getting rougher. This year we had the strikes. There's a lot of concern around AI and the ethics of its use and all this stuff. I don't know what 2024 has in store for us. I really don't know. I feel pretty disheartened, if I'm being totally honest, because of what happened to me. I don't know. Like, it was already hard enough to get that job, to get that first in. And even though people have told me like, oh, the first one's always the hardest one, then you meet more people and it gets, I don't want to say easier, it's still very competitive and difficult, but you know more people to vouch for you. But the problem is, I was there for such a short period of time. I wasn't there long enough to really cultivate those relationships. I didn't get to seriously know anyone super well because I wasn't there for long, and I was remote on top of that. So that doesn't really make me feel better. At least not right now. I don't know what's gonna happen. I hope I'm not out of work forever, but it's scary. I go on LinkedIn and I see people saying that they're at the end of their rope, that they've been searching for 6 months, 8 months, a year, maybe more. And it's kind of scary when I see people who are working professionals in the industry, like they already have years of experience under their belt and they're struggling to look for work. It's like, how am I supposed to have any hope? I'm still green, I've only had one job and I was there for less than a month. For the short period of time I was there, I still learned a ton and gained a lot of experience and really got the insight of what the day-to-day of a PA really looks like. However short it was still really insightful. But when you're competing for a job and you're up against people that have way more experience than you. It's, it's hard to stand out. It's hard to be hopeful when the competition is so tough right now. That being said, moving forward in 2024, you might start to see a shift in the type of content I'll be making. That's really going to depend on how the beginning of the year goes. I'm really hoping that by the end of January, no later than February, I'm able to land my next job. If not, I don't know what I'm going to do. Up until now, my entire channel has been focused on animation industry career advice and how to break in and all of that. But given the way things are going, I'm not sure. I feel like it's hypocritical of me to make content about how to break into the industry when I can't seem to get that right myself. I don't know. I mean, like, I did it, but like barely. It was so short-lived, and the reason why I waited this long to talk about it or even mention it publicly is because, I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. I announced, like, I got my first job. I did it. And then, imagine how embarrassing it is to turn around and be like, never mind, just kidding. It's like I got my foot in the door and it just like smacked me on the way out. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Depending on how things go in early next year, you might see my content slowly start to shift more towards how to be an independent artist. Because at the end of the day, my long-term goal is to be a showrunner. I just really want to make my own series because I have my own story that I really want to tell. And I'm hoping that in 2024, I'll start to get comfortable sharing bits and pieces of my story, sharing art from it, and doing all of that. I hope to maybe even start working on the project seriously, like trying to independently fund my own, original pilot that I would like to put on YouTube at some point. So, I don't want to promise anything, but look out for that in the new year. I want to finally open up an Etsy shop, which is something that has been on my to-do list for a long time, almost as long as, I wanted to make a YouTube channel. And I finally, I did my YouTube channel, and I'm working on that. So opening up an Etsy shop would be like my next step. And then trying to get the ball rolling on creating my own original pilot would be the next like really big project that I'd like to take on. So, sprinkle in a little bit of New Year's resolutions in there for you. That's the story of how I landed my first ever animation job and also faced my very first layoff ever. May not be the last. I hate to say that. I really hate to say that. I don't even want to speak that into existence or manifest that, but current state of the industry and just the way that this business goes, it's just, unfortunately, that's the norm. So after being blindsided by it once, at least I know what to do next time it happens, and I'll be better prepared, hopefully. I'm sorry if this video was like a bit of a downer, but as part of wanting to use this channel to document my own journey and share my experiences, I mean, this is one hell of an experience, I'll tell you that. I think it's important to also be aware of the not so bright side, and it's not all sunshine and daisies. And again, I'm not saying this to discourage or deter anyone from pursuing animation, but just know if you plan on pursuing this path, this is the baggage it comes with. You have to be prepared for a life of constantly looking for work and possibly getting laid off, whether it be to budget cuts or a season ending or you no longer being needed. It's bound to happen, and you got to be prepared for that. And the reason why I really want to get the ball rolling on my YouTube channel and opening up a shop and finding different forms of monetization is so that at least the next time this happens to me, I have more of a cushion to fall back on through my content creation and, selling my art and doing other things and just having those multiple streams of income. Because, nowadays, as an artist or creative person, like, you have to have that to fall back on. I still look forward to making more videos in the new year. I have lots of ideas in store. I'm not going to drop, making content related to animation altogether. I still will. I just might be pivoting a little bit more towards like indie animation. Hopefully that's still exciting and something you're interested in if you are an artist or a creative person and you also have the strong desire to tell your own story. Please don't give up hope. I think it's really important to stay hopeful, and if you don't want to wait around for an animation studio to notice you and hire you, then just go out and start making your thing. I want to take that leap of faith next year and just stop being so scared to show my work. And I just want to go out there and just put my story out there and just start making it. And I'm going to try to hold myself to that. So if you have a really strong desire to tell your story, make your art, and do your thing, don't let anything stop you. Just do it. Just start doing it and just put your stuff out there and just, do it for you. Find that self-fulfillment within you and just get it done. I know I will. I hope you all have a wonderful new year. Keep on trying, and hopefully the new year will bring a lot more prosperity and fairness for artists. Really, really hoping so. I'm hoping that the new year will be better, and I'm just like holding on to that very dearly. So yeah, I will see you all in the next year.